like to call the regular village board meeting to order for the village of Shorewood on September the 8th in the year 2020. If you would please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hey, roll call, Diane.
Mayor Chapman,
Here.
Dan Anderson,
Here.
Steve Brockman,
Here.
Cece DeBold,
Here.
Barb Kirkland,
Here.
Dan Warren,
Here.
and Tony Luciano.
Here. Okay. Who else is over the phone with us tonight? We got Kelly.
Kelly's on. Yes, Mayor. Good evening.
Okay.
John from the building department here.
Okay.
Ann's here. Good evening.
Good evening. Can you all hear all right? Well, you just answered. I guess that's all right. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. I'd like to move on. Are there any citizens that wish to address the village board tonight? Over the phone, any citizens on the phone within our meeting here? Okay. I'm going to move on tonight to the consent agenda, which consists of approval of the regular meeting minutes for August the 25th. Approval of the committee of the whole meeting minutes for August the 25th. Number 3, approval of accounts payable in the amount of $263,072.22. Number 4, approval of a payment in the amount of $10,500 to Tri Architecture for professional services for the new Public Works facility. And finally, approval of a payment in the amount of $38,918 to Ron Terrapelli Ford for a 2020 Ford 350 utility truck. Are there any questions or comments on tonight's consent, or anything a trustee would like removed for further review?
Motion to approve the consent.
Second.
Okay, Diane, roll call, please.
Luciano,
Yes.
Warren,
Yes.
Brockman, DeBold,
Yes.
Kirkland,
Yes.
and Anderson.
Yes. Consent agenda stands approved as read. So I'll move on to reports and communications. Any communications to the board, Diane?
No, they're not, Mayor.
Okay. I have no proclamations. So I'd like to move on to tonight's order of business. Business item number 1. Consideration for approval of an ordinance authorizing the execution of an annexation agreement between the village of Shorewood, Will County, Illinois, and GoPro LLC. This is up for a second read. Kelly?
Thank you, Mayor. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you're the only one without a mask on. No, you and Luciano. Okay.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. So if you'll recall, 2 weeks ago when we had the first reading, we had not yet received the comments regarding the traffic impact study. And so since that meeting, we have received responses from the traffic consultant, and the village engineer has agreed that those responses are acceptable. It, however, does not change the original conclusions that were reached in the report, although we did ask for them to update the report And so the updated traffic impact study is attached to the agreement as an exhibit, as is the document, which did have some revisions. It was the draft operation and commercial subdivision easement agreement. Most of those modifications were simply formatting changes. So those are really the two changes that we have to the annexation agreement, and staff does recommend approval. I do believe Dan Kramer is in the audience, who represents GoPro Ball, if there's any other questions for him.
Okay. Are there any questions?
No.
I just want to ask again, the timeline for the GoPro compared to the storage facility, what did we determine on that?
So the language that we've put into the agreement, it's actually in the Four Seasons agreement, but that language is to require the building permit to have been issued for GoPro Ball, as well as some construction to have started. So really any sort of construction to have started with GoPro Ball before Four Seasons can start. And I do believe that Attorney Kramer had pointed out the fact that the private driveway is the responsibility of Four Seasons to construct. And so they do want to try and coordinate that to be able to permit access for GoPro Ball's property.
Okay. Any other questions for Kelly on item number 1?
Nope.
Like to make a motion to approve an ordinance authorizing the execution of an annexation agreement between the Village of Shorewood, Will County, and GoPro LLC.
I'll second.
Okay, Diane, roll call, please.
Luciano,
Yes.
DeBold,
Yes.
Warren,
Yes.
Brockman, Anderson, and Kirkland,
Yes.
And the mayor votes on this one as well.
and Mayor Chapman.
Oh, yeah, because of the annexation, yes. Okay. Agenda item number 1 stands approved. Are you just going to stay with us, Kelly?
I am. I've got the first 5 items here, but
You're looking
Would you
right
like me-
at me. It's kind of different.
agreed.
Okay. All right. Just to let you know. Okay. Agenda item number 2, consideration for approval of an ordinance authorizing the execution of an annexation agreement between the Village of Shorewood, Will County, Illinois, and Four Seasons Self-Storage. This is also a second read. Kelly?
Thank you, Mayor. So if you'll recall, we did have the conversation about the timing. And so that has not changed since the last meeting. That is the language that was incorporated. We did also update the traffic impact study exhibit, as well as the operations and maintenance easement agreement that I discussed for the GoPro Ball annexation agreement. And with this, staff also recommends approval for this annexation agreement as well.
Since Mr. Kramer is here, a little bit concerned about this outside storage. Could be 3 years. Hopefully, it wouldn't be any longer than that.
Yep. Is the question to Kelly or?
Well, either Kelly or Attorney Kramer, whoever wants to answer, I don't want that to be extending into 4, 5, 6 years.
Good evening, Dan Kramer on behalf of the petitioner. What ended up happening, and again, like so many things with COVID, the petitioners, the Maffio family had planned on building all of the buildings in one fell swoop, and there really wouldn't be any outdoor storage at all. As things shut down in the economy, their lender made them do a feasibility study to see if they thought they could fill up that many storage buildings, given the economy hit. They came back and the lender approved to do 5 buildings in phase 1, and then the second phase of 5 buildings, so long as they maintained a 90% average occupancy level within 2 years. So their plan is within 3 years to build the second set of 5 buildings. One of the things I think we talked about when I was here a couple of weeks ago is this is designed like no storage facility you've seen before. If you're going to drive down County Farm or County Line Road and look to the west, you're going to see the back of 2 buildings with brick on them and decorative wrought iron. There will be 2 on the west side facing in, so no doors on the outside like you see when you drive up and down 59 or Ridge Road. And then the office building will be on the south side where the road is. So the temporary storage is all in the middle of that. And staff asked us to agree that there would be no outdoor storage until that middle area was totally blacktop, which we agreed to. So you're frankly not going to see the storage any way you drive by it.
Excellent, yeah. Okay, any more questions on this?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Kelly.
With that, I'll make a motion to approve an ordinance authorizing the execution of an annexation agreement between the Village of Shorewood, Will County, and Four Seasons Self-Storage.
Second.
Get that, Diane, roll call?
Mayor Chapman?
Here.
Dan Anderson?
Yes.
Dan Brockman? Sorry.
I'm not used to saying that, yes.
Steve Brockman?
Yes.
Dan Warren?
Yes.
Cece DeBold?
Yes.
Barb Kirkland?
Yes.
And Tony Luciano.
Yes.
Okay, agenda item number 2 stands approved. To number 3, consideration for approval of an ordinance granting a variance from Title 10 of the Shorewood Village Code with regard to signage in the Village of Shorewood, Will County, Illinois. 714 Cottage Street. This is up for first read. Trustee Brockman and Kelly.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Kelly, if you're still on there, I'll start with this and then turn it over to you. But Marks on 59 came before us at our last meeting, wanting a zoning variance, mainly because of the electronic message board. And we did hold a public hearing. There was no comments for or against the project. We did have one question from one of the commissioners about the location of the sign. He thought maybe it would have been better in the southwest corner instead of the northwest corner. But I think the person that was there that evening representing Marks on 59 said they looked at that and it wasn't possible. So where they've got it at, I think will be just fine. So go ahead, Kelly, if you want to fill in the blanks, you're welcome to.
Very good, thank you. The only thing I have a couple images here to just sort of explain where this is at. So as you can see, this is the Marks on 59 building. They have the narrowest part of their building faces Cottage Street. And so they're looking to get some additional exposure. The proposed sign is shown here, where the rest of the sign meets code requirements with the exception of the message center. And so this we have in the past granted variances and amended PUDs to allow. And so this is the proposed location. As you can see, it's on the north west corner of the site. And as Trustee Brockman explained, there was some discussion, but determined not to be feasible for it to be located at the intersection there. And so this just demonstrates the location of the sign. They're actually going to be tearing up some asphalt to put in some sod or seed, as well as the required landscaping. And the PZC did recommend approval. There were conditions, which are our standard conditions that we have approved on the prior message center signs. And so we are recommending approval and waiving of the second read.
Kelly, Mark is here this evening. If you wanted to say anything, Mark, you're welcome to come up. Questions from the board?
Mark Kafka, the owner of Mark's on 59. My sign guy couldn't come here today. He had a family emergency. I just came by to, see if everything you need, any questions, I could help you. But
Okay.
he's been taking care of it, but I appreciate whatever you guys can do, get this moving along. It's been a 6-month process, 14 months, 14 years in a process because of the 59 construction. So we'd appreciate it. Things have been slow. So whatever we could do, we'll take care of it. Thank you, guys.
Okay, thank you.
Mark, what's your last name, Mark? Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from the board?
It looks fine. Nice
Good.
brick facility. It looks like it blends in with most of the other ones that we have around, so I think it'll be fine.
And we sure wish you the best with not only the sign, but with your business. Seeing none, I'll make a motion to approve an ordinance granting a variance from Title 10 of the Shorewood Village Code with regard to signage in the village of Shorewood, 714 Cottage Street, and I would like to waive the second read.
Second.
Okay. Diane, roll call, please.
Brockman, Warren, DeBold,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Kirkland, Yes. and Luciano.
Yes.
Agenda item number 3 stands approved. And again, from everybody, we got to get through this.
Are we good?
This bad period,
Oh,
okay? So,
we're good.
okay. Right, moving on to business item number 4. Consideration for approval of an ordinance amending Titles 3 and 10 of the Shorewood Village Code regarding definitions, agricultural uses, fences, visibility on corner lots, screening of mechanical equipment, educational facilities, health and fitness, instructional, massage, personal care, and tattoo uses, and the commercial kitchens. This is up for a first read. Trustee Brockman and Kelly.
Thank you again, Mayor. I'm going to turn this directly over to Kelly. Looks like we're 2 or 3 meetings in a row with massive paperwork, so this is big also. And Kelly, make sure you give them the hour and a half talk that we had on this at the planning and zoning. Thank you. Go
I'm
ahead.
going to try and summarize as best I can, but I am happy to answer any detailed questions that anyone wants to throw at me. So I guess before we get started with the topics, I did want to explain why we have a number of seemingly unrelated text amendments. And that is because we are attempting to do 4 things. We are attempting to address existing issues, to resolve some inconsistencies that we found in the code, to streamline administration, and then to also try and modernize some of these regulations. And so that's why we have sort of a random number of amendments, but as we get through them, you'll perhaps understand a little better why they're being brought forward. So in terms of the agricultural uses, this is one that, we had already talked about. There was in July. And so this is consistent with the proposal that we discussed at I believe it was the committee of the whole in July. And there was one request for a modification that has been incorporated, and that was with regard to the gardening definition, where we wanted to make it clear that an accessory greenhouse would be permitted on a residential property, but it would need to be accessory. So it would need to meet all of the other zoning requirements for accessory structures. Moving on to fences and hedges. We did do a lot of modifications to fences and hedges, particularly because we have had some confusion as to what's allowed and where it's allowed. So one of the things that we did was incorporate graphics as much as possible. And so what you see here are some examples of the different types of fencing and that will be incorporated into the definitions. The other thing that we did was we tried to clarify the location of these different types of fences and provide a graphic that would be more easily understood by residents as well as interpreted by staff. And so what you see here is an updated regulation based on many of the same regulation, an updated graphic based on the many of the existing regulations and then a couple of the revised regulations. One thing we did make clear is that we do have a requirement for intersection visibility. And so if you see the diagram, the lower diagram, it does show a little triangular area that has a no fences. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that one when we get into that intersection visibility section. But one of the regulations that we did modify has to do with interior side yard fences. This is probably one of the most common requests that we get that we were unable to previously approve, but we are, and the PZC has recommended approval of allowing a 6-foot solid fence to go up to the front of your home, as long as it does not go beyond the adjacent home. And so if you'll see the image on the left is our existing regulation, and then the proposed is the graphic on the right. And this will allow more flexibility with screening of trash cans and keeping the perhaps the door to the service door to the garage hidden and enhance privacy for residents. Another thing that we did was try to help clarify where chain link fencing was permitted. And the one change that we did make is that chain link fence may not face streets. So if you'll see in the graphic, the areas in yellow are where chain link fences may be located. However, if they're in front or in line with the house, then they do need to be some form of decorative fence or a solid fence, as the case may be for that location. There are a couple other changes that we made to this section, and we did add mound to the list of arterials that would have some exemptions. We removed the references to livable area because currently the code restricts the location of fences based on where you have livable area. But in the end, what is visible from the street does not have anything to do with livable area. So we removed that to eliminate confusion and again, make it clear where people could put their fences. We also exempted public utility companies and government properties from these regulations, as there are many unique circumstances that where these regulations may not even be applicable. The regulations regarding barbed wire, we are removing the allowance to have barbed wire in commercial districts, but we are keeping it in industrial districts. And so right now there is one example or one location where there's barbed wire in a commercial district, and it is surrounding an antenna, telecommunication tower. And that would be permitted to remain subject to, the non-conforming regulation. And then finally, we reference the intersection visibility regulations, which is the next section that we will get into. And so what we've done is we've provided a graphic, again, trying to make it clear so that it's a little easier to understand, where there can be no obstructions between 30 inches and 84 inches from the grade at the corners or intersections. And so there's two different ways that this can be measured. It is 30 feet measured from the curb, or 10 feet measured from the property line, whichever is greater. And so this will help us to account for some of the unique intersections where we have maybe less parkway or more parkway, and it provides us, again, trying to improve the visibility for motorists as well as pedestrians, and allowing some enforcement capability for those areas where it is very difficult to get clear visibility. And again, the idea here is to promote safety on our streets and sidewalks. We also revised the screening of mechanical equipment. This one is in response largely to the Holy Family addition, where the building design did not allow a parapet wall, which is what was required by code, to be constructed. It just didn't fit with the architecture, and it was an existing building. And so what we did was we relocated the section from the landscaping requirements, and we moved it into the general provisions. We also provided options for new construction did need to build in a parapet wall that was consistent with the design of the building. But generally speaking, any existing buildings would have the ability to not only use the parapet wall, but then may have the option of installing a rooftop screen that would need to be as tall as the equipment. And that is to be able to accommodate the various types of buildings that are already existing. One thing that did come up in our discussion with the PZC is that this need to screen rooftop mechanical does need to be done when rooftop units are replaced. So they don't have to, an existing building wouldn't have to come in upon the adoption of this regulation and install rooftop screening today or tomorrow for their mechanical equipment, but they would need to put up screening when they replace a unit. So if they're replacing a couple units, then they would need to make sure those are screened at that time. The other thing that we did was we noticed that the ground mounted or the mechanical units that were on the ground were not subject to the screening requirements. And so what we did was required screening by fence, wall, hedge, or some combination thereof to be consistent in terms of trying to mask those utilitarian structures. And oftentimes they need to be placed maybe in the front yard, and nobody wants to be able to have that as the entrance to their building. So that's where that came into play. In terms of educational facilities, we have an existing therapeutic day school that is looking to expand their facility. And so as we were looking to try and figure out what classification they would fall into, we started looking at all of our educational facilities and definitions, as well as where they were located, so that we could get a better understanding of, what was allowed and where. What we found is that the college and universities were actually not permitted in any zoning district. So we put them as conditional uses in the OCI as well as the ORI, particularly for research, the office research district. That seems to be more appropriate given the college or university often has research functions as part of that. The other thing is that we looked at trade or vocational schools, and we realized or recognized that while trade or vocational schools could be automotive in nature, they weren't actually permitted in our automotive district where they may be pretty appropriately located. So we added that as a conditional use, and then a conditional use in also the OCI as well as ORI. With regard to a K through 12 school, we did revise the definition on this, and we did specifically include therapeutic day schools. While these schools are typically working in concert with the public school systems, they do not themselves issue diplomas, but they help to support the education for students that are in those public schools. And so what we did was we clarified that it is permitted in the OCI district, and then we added, because it is currently permitted in residential districts, we added it to the multifamily districts, feeling that that was pretty consistent with the other districts that it was already allowed in terms of residential. And then what we did was we cleaned up the nursery or preschool definitions, and then the only other change that we made there was adding it as a conditional use in the R4 and R5, which are the multifamily districts as well. So with these cleanups, we think that we've addressed the educational facilities in terms of being able to classify uses as well as identifying where they would be able to be located. The health and fitness, instructional, massage, and personal care uses, as well as tattoo, this really stemmed from multiple businesses having to modify their services in order to accommodate changing market needs. And so while this started prior to the pandemic, it is particularly applicable to the changes that businesses have to evaluate and try and figure out how to pivot to remain relevant and sustainable. And so what we've done is we've provided new classifications for health and fitness uses, also includes wellness center, and that, you know, a wellness center like a Lifetime Fitness, for example, could have not only services that are for fitness uses, but also maybe daycares and personal care, which would be hair care or skin care, as well as massage. It could also have some nutritional classes and things like that. So we've tried to kind of better categorize these different uses so that there was a little more flexibility in our code. Instructional uses are those uses that are perhaps learning, like tutoring services and learning a new language. It could include some nutritional counseling and music classes, that type of thing. Massage uses, we are simply referring back to Title III, which identifies massage uses and massage therapy. But what we've done is better defined where those massage uses will be permitted in the zoning classifications. Personal care uses are those uses like beauty salons, barbershops, spas, nail salons, and then tattoo uses. So this is one where we had an existing business looking to expand services to remain relevant and wanted to incorporate microblading. And so what we've done is we've referenced the tattoo definitions within Title III and then identified the location for those types of uses. And so with that, I will kind of give, this is a summary slide of where those uses are permitted. Couple things that we looked at in terms of health and fitness uses. We've had a number of baseball training facilities or gymnastic places that are relatively small in terms of floor area, and they have really a minimal impact. And all of those conditional uses have been approved. And so we looked at the ability to allow those uses by right up to a floor area of 7,500 square feet. Then in the B1, the B2, and the B3 zoning districts, then we've allowed them as conditional in the OCI and ORI. And then we've done the same thing for health and fitness uses. Again, a gym coming forward. I think we just had one a couple weeks ago. And, you know, there really is minimal impact. When we start getting into the larger sizes, that's when we want to be able to review it as conditional uses to ensure that there's minimal impact on adjacent properties, make sure that there's, you know, suitable accommodations for the types of different uses that they'll be incorporated into that business. And then massage uses, really what we've done is we've allowed it as an accessory use to personal care or health and fitness uses, because again, those are typically the types of uses that are kind of coupled together in these businesses as they're trying to redefine their services. And then finally, tattoo uses. So we have proposed it to be permitted in the B3, which is our most general retail zoning or commercial zoning district, but also allowed to be permitted as an accessory use to personal care uses. So if you've got a salon, for example, and they want to do microblading, then they would be permitted to do that under these regulations. The other thing I do want to point out is that we have specifically prohibited tattoo uses as a home-based business in an effort to provide greater clarity that these are really intended to only be within the commercial and industrial zoning districts, largely as accessory to personal care uses. And then we also at commercial kitchens. There is typically at least one article a week that I've been reading lately where commercial kitchens, shared kitchens, ghost kitchens, these are all terms used for almost like production cooking establishments where the business will just have a kitchen that they maybe supply their food truck with, or they are a catering business. And so what we had was a catering establishment, which is permitted in the B2 and the B3 zoning districts, but we had not defined that. And since the business zoning districts are intended to be retail focused, what we've done is we've defined a catering establishment to include, that it shall include a retail function, whether that be a service counter where somebody can come in and buy something over the counter, or that they have some sort of table set up for people to consume that product on the site, or even having some form of instructional use, so such as a cooking class, for example, where the public can come in and enter the establishment. A commercial kitchen, however, is it does not have to have any sort of retail component, but what we've done is we've reclassified what was called a bakery. Really, it was more of a production bakery that was permitted in the I2 and called that commercial kitchens. And then we permitted in the ORI as well. And this is to, again, accommodate those potential requests for commercial kitchen space that maybe doesn't have that retail component. And again, sort of try and capitalize on being able to utilize or at least accommodate those uses. And so the PZC did recommend approval with that revision to the definition of gardening to explicitly allow accessory greenhouses on residential properties. Other than that, that was a unanimous recommendation for approval, and I am happy to answer any questions.
We did hold a public hearing on this, and Kelly, we had one speaker that was in favor of the microblading. She had been here before, but I can't remember her name right now, but she did speak, of course, in favor of it. So.
I got one question for you then, Kelly. On you're adding section 10-3, it's page, well, they're not numbered real well, everybody, but if you, so everybody knows what I'm referencing, it's about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's 9 pages in. My question though is, when we're adding this section that says 10-3-35, mechanical equipment screening, I understand the definitions involved here are obviously referring to commercial properties, but there's nothing that, when you go to the next page, when it talks about all ground-mounted mechanical equipment over 30 inches must be screened, is there a way we can change the verbiage so that's not interpreted to a residential aspect? Because a residential, that would require a homeowner to have to screen their air conditioning unit possibly.
So I believe, Trustee DeBold, if you look at item D, there are exemptions from the requirements of this section. And so that's on the next page. And so rooftop mechanical equipment customarily incidental to single-family detached and single-family attached. We can certainly scratch out the rooftop mechanical and just have it be mechanical equipment. I do see your point on that.
Yeah, just something so it kind of helps streamline that it's, you know, the single-family home aspect's not going to be required to put screening around an air conditioning unit.
Yes, absolutely. I think if we take out rooftop, I think that mechanical equipment customarily incidental to single-family detached and single-family attached residential structures.
I think that would help.
Okay.
Thank you.
And that then would be one of the exemptions. So they would not be subject to the regulations.
Quite an in-depth presentation. I think it was done quite well. Kel, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Anybody have any more questions for Kelly? Was a first read. If the board chooses to keep it that way and go to the next meeting, we'll move on. Business item number 5, consideration for approval of an ordinance providing temporary relief from the Village of Shorewood Code of Ordinances with respect to premises outdoor dining and seating, alcohol consumption and sale, and setting forth interim regulations to govern these matters. This is also a first read. Kelly?
Thank you, Mayor. So upon our adoption of the temporary outdoor seating program, we have moved into phase 4, and then now subsequently we now have these mitigations put in place. And so as we were looking at the program after having a little bit of time pass, we have recognized that there are a couple changes that would be of benefit to the business community and the bars and restaurants in particular. And so what we're recommending is that we eliminate any reference to sidewalls. This has the Department of the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity have actually issued some subsequent guidance where sidewalls may be permitted, and particularly if our region is having to remain with these mitigations in place. As the weather gets a little colder, they can have up to 2 sidewalls in place and provide some form of windbreak, and then possibly being able to provide some sort of heat within the tent. The other thing is that we have updated based on references to the guidelines or mitigations enacted by the state, and updated based on some gaming. The gaming is currently permitted even with mitigations, and so we've referenced that in here. The other big reason why we're bringing this forward is because initially we thought that November 15th might be a good time for, well, really an adequate amount of time for people to want to have outdoor seating, not recognizing or realizing that we may have additional mitigations that could last longer. I've met with a couple different businesses that have expressed an interest to have additional space outside over the winter, and provided that we can have indoor dining, that is something that we can do. So what we're proposing is to get rid of any date restriction and just leave the permit valid until the while the governor has restricted on-premises dining for anything less than full capacity. So this will give us even more flexibility with the dining restrictions that may or may not continue to go back and forth. And so with that, we're recommending approval and waiver of the second read.
Could you go back on that, Kelly, on the outdoor dining with the side sides up, or is it just 2 you said?
So in order for it to be considered outdoor dining, they can only have 2 sidewalls. If they have 4 sidewalls, it would be considered indoor dining, and that will be permissible once we're able to have indoor dining resume.
What about
So
3
we'll
walls?
be able to, I'm sorry.
What about 3 walls? I mean, we've referenced 2 and we've referenced 4. Where does 3 stand?
3 would be considered indoor dining according to the guidelines.
Okay.
You know, anything after about middle of October is gonna be kinda cold anyway. I mean, is this really gonna make any difference with keeping these businesses open and having their dining, outside dining?
So we have had a business that is looking to get a tent with 4 sidewalls and being able to vent in some heat to be able to keep this as indoor dining space throughout the winter. And now I don't know at what point it becomes too cold, but they're certainly looking to expand their indoor dining options as much as possible, especially given the capacity restrictions that they're faced. So this does provide some options for them. Again, I don't know how long they'll really be able to feasibly seat people outside, but it certainly does prolong the outdoor dining option.
Yeah, anything we can do to keep these guys open is what, needed, so.
No, I completely agree.
Kelly or Chief, are we anywhere close to that 6.5% or no?
The number came down on Sunday, so it was down Sunday, Monday, and today.
From what to what?
Well, it was over 8, it's down to 7.4. However, that's the daily number. The governor's directive said it had to be the average. So the average is probably still above 8. I do not know when the governor will choose to speak to that or what he will do.
I don't care if you got 2, 3, 4 sides on a tin, it's just like indoor dining to me, there's no difference. It's just ridiculous. But if that's what it takes, that's what it takes.
Yep. On Thursday, the Will County Government League, we're gonna get together on Zoom, and there's a lot of different pockets of the county right now that are working on different angles. Right now, we're seeing that the state's using one formula, the Will County Health Department's using a different formula, if they use one at all. And we even threw one in today, right, Jim? Our zip code is 4.2 positivity. Chief?
In the past week.
Raise your hand when I make a mistake here. So this past week, 4.2 just in ours. But what we see is testing going up, and that seems to be a positive thing. If you can test more people, the positivity number seems to want to come down, because there's more healthy people out there than there are people that have COVID. And if you test those healthy people, that drives that positivity rate down. We didn't understand, or at least a lot of us didn't understand, me included, was how Will County and Kankakee County could be higher than Cook and the city of Chicago. We just didn't understand it. I still don't. I've been raising that question with the health department, with other mayors in the county. Fletcher over in Makina, and Balderman especially. We've been working back and forth, just talking about it and trying to come up with some good questions on Thursday. Or some good answers, I should say. That we've got to get a consistent formula that we all understand. Jim, would you like to take over and tell them what we heard from the health department?
Sure, thank you, Mayor. So basically, we learned on Friday that the numbers that IDPH uses to calculate the percent positive comes from a different source than what is published publicly about the data. It has to do with, I think, the electronic laboratory reporting of the results. So that explains why no one has been able to produce the same calculation, of percent positive, is because the numbers the state uses aren't being published publicly. Supposedly, IDPH is going to change that, and they're going to put on their website that data, which they have been using, and people will be able to make that calculation and which would come up with the same percent positive that IDPH is going to be announcing.
Hopefully.
Hopefully. That's what we were told Friday. If that happens, I think it'll go a long way in reducing confusion and improving transparency so that we understand how and why we're being subjected to mitigation measures.
Yeah.
Well, why would they use the same numbers in the first place?
That's a great question, Dan, because we've been asking it for a long time. And sometimes you get no callbacks, sometimes you get a callback from somebody you've got no idea who it is, and they give you some off-the-wall answer. And then the bureaucracy is just unbelievable.
That's a perfect example of why people don't trust government, right there.
Yeah. Well, it's, if you see my last video, I did come out and actually say that personally I don't believe the numbers for our district. And I hope the Will County Health Department picked up the amount of testing. I saw that happen over the past week. We had how many coming out, or when are they coming out to Shorewood Glen, Chief?
I do not know if they're.
Well, Jim.
Right. I don't believe there's any plans for them to visit.
Oh,
Shorewood.
there is.
Okay, that's news to me then.
Yeah, okay. And I apologize because I'm getting stuff coming in from all angles. And management over there said that they're coming over there with over 500 tests. And they're coming over this week. So that should be a good thing. They've got, I don't know if I'm allowed to even say what they've seen over there, okay? So I'm not going to say anything.
Well, why get tested if you don't have any symptoms? That's the thing.
Well,
just to drive the numbers down?
I didn't have any, but I had contact with somebody, so I went and got tested.
Yeah,
right?
okay.
40% of the people that have it show no symptoms, though. That's why.
That's what we need is more people that don't have the symptoms getting tested.
Yeah.
To just see how widespread this is. So anybody who is concerned, our businesses, every one of them that have been pushed back in mitigation should have all their people being tested.
To prove a point.
To help this out. Because I got a feeling that's what's happened to the north of us, that they're getting a lot more people tested now. The chief keeps track of all the numbers and tells me that that's probably, on an average, it probably looks the same. I'm not sure because of the timing involved. When they get the test taken, from when they get the results, and the people that are in charge of this thing, I'm not sure that they're as coordinated as they could be. I mean, this is something new to everybody, these organizations. I'm not blaming anybody. What I'm trying to say is that this is a learning experience in some cases. But I am concerned when Will County, Kankakee County goes that much higher above. At one time, we were 50% above the positivity rate of Cook and Chicago. 50%. That's huge. And they were creeping up, and we were skyrocketing, if you want to use that term. I hate to use these superlatives, but we were going up a lot faster than anybody else. Now, how does that happen? Well, if you start testing people who are showing symptoms only and testing places where you know you might have an outbreak, your positivity numbers are definitely going to be higher than anybody else around you if you're not testing the healthy population at the same time. So, at any rate, hopefully Friday we have some more information from what the entire county's doing. And Jim, we get that out to all the board members, you know, exactly what's happening.
Will do.
And if we get that formula that's going to be used by everybody, and we know how to interpret it, interpret the nomenclature of it, we need to see that too.
Right.
Okay? Getting back to the outdoor dining. Okay, any questions, any other questions for Kelly?
I'll make a motion to approve the revisions to the temporary off-premise outdoor dining for restaurants, breweries, bars, taverns as presented.
Second.
And waive the second
And
reading.
waive the second read, thank you.
Okay. Second by trustee Kirkland. Roll call, Diane?
Luciano?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Kirkland?
Yes.
Brockman?
Yes.
Warren?
Yes.
And DeBold?
Yes.
Agenda item number 5 stands approved. Moving on to number 6. Consideration for approval of an upgrade of the SCADA system from radio to cellular communications by Metropolitan Pump Company in the amount of $62,022. Mr. Noriega.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, trustees. So our supervisory control and data acquisition system, SCADA for short, operates our water treatment plant along with our sanitary sewer collection systems. This system relies on 20-year-old, outdated, obsolete radio equipment. As you're already aware, earlier this year, our system, the radio failed over at one of our lift stations, and we already started the process with upgrading partially our system. So our 3 lift stations and well number 8 have already been upgraded. This proposal you have in front of you in the amount of $62,000 is to change the rest of our radio read system to the cellular at the rest of our well systems, along with our water towers and over at our Bronx meter sites. And I'm available for any questions that you may have.
This was a budgeted item. It was a little more money. Some other prices on projects that we've done this year have come in lower than expected, so we're not gonna cost any more money. We're just gonna move money from one lower bid and into this. It's only about $10,000. So
Is this mostly a software change on the computer systems, or is this a hardware change?
It's hardware. It's changing from radio to actual cellular hardware.
Okay, all right.
So, I'll make a motion to approve the upgrade to the SCADA system from radio to cellular communications by Metropolitan Pump Company in the amount of $62,022.
Second.
Diane, roll call, please.
Luciano?
Yes.
Warren?
Yes.
DeBold?
Yes.
Brockman?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
And Kirkland?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Agenda item 6 stands approved. Moving on to our final business item. Number 7, consideration for approval of an ordinance directing and authorizing the disposal of personal property by the Village of Shorewood. This is a first read. Chief Klima.
Good evening. We periodically clean out the vault from all the closed cases, and the destruction order before you is for all the property that needs to disappear. We've destroyed the drugs and those sorts of things. There is property there that is of no value to anyone. We've tried to return it to the rightful owners, and the things that we need to get rid of are listed, and we use propertyroom.com, which we've been doing for many years.
Make a motion to get rid of surplus property.
Second.
You want to waive the
Waive the
second read?
Waive the second read.
Is everybody okay with that?
All right.
Okay. Diane, roll call, please.
Luciano,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Kirkland,
Yes.
DeBold,
Yes.
Warren.
Yes.
And Brockman.
Yes.
Okay. And item number 7 stands approved. We'll move on to reports. Trustee Anderson, Public Works.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. First up's the MFT program. Like I reported 2 weeks ago, it's all wrapped up pretty much for the season. We're still waiting on restoration for the residents out there who have stuff in their yard, front yards, parkways tore up. That'll be done this fall, waiting on a schedule from PT Farrow. We've did 400 square feet of sidewalk removal and replacement in Brook Forest North. This didn't qualify for mud jacking or repair, so they just had to be tore out and replaced. There's finished up the storm damage from the storm August 10th. That's pretty much done. Started removing some stumps. There's about 30-some tree stumps that's got to go. Tree pruning is also going on in Brook Forest North. Basin 3, that's moving along. The inspection, rehab work, the inspection is moving along pretty good. One thing that I should have been talking about, especially over the last 6 or 8 weeks, and I have in the past years, but this year I just kind of blanked it, is the watering restrictions and the timelines of watering irrigation. It's 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Based on your address, odd and even days. So you can do it for 4 hours in the morning and 4 hours in the evening based on your address, odd or even. It's pretty simple. And, you know, I know it's toward the end of the summer and probably not too much more going on there, but, you know, if you could adhere to our restrictions, our policy and our restrictions on when to water, it'd be helpful. And then last thing we've got, and it's not our project, it's the bike trail over I-55 and DuPage River. It's delayed. It's going to continue to be going on throughout the winter until weather permits it or stops to work, and then they're going to open up Black Road so it's open all winter, so we can not have a restriction there. There's some IDOT regulations and upgrades that have been required now. That's part of the delay, and it has to do with I-55. So the projection or the assumption to have this done is in spring of 2021, May of 2021. But that's not our project, but it does affect us and our residents, so just kind of give you a heads up on that one. That's all I have.
Okay. Any questions for Trustee Anderson? Trustee Brockman, Planning and Zoning Commission.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Nothing from Planning and Zoning, no report, but too early for an agenda. I do want to remind everybody about 19 years ago this Friday what happened, and keep that in mind, all the people that we lost that day. So 19 years, hard to believe.
Yeah, it sure is.
Okay, Mayor, thank you.
Oh, okay. And thank you for bringing that up. That's it's something that none of us should forget, okay? Okay, moving on. Trustee Kirkland, Parks and Recreation.
Thank you. Our splash pads have been shut off for the season, and so the water's been cut off. No more splash pads till Memorial Day. Upcoming, we have this Friday is the last day to register for the village-wide garage sales, which were moved. They're this month, this 18th and 19th of September, so If you want to get on the map Friday, you have to register by Friday. And also the family camp out that was moved is coming up. That's the 25th to the 26th of this month. And for those two events, if you need additional information, please go to the website, the village website, and click, and you'll see it under upcoming events. That's my report.
Okay. Okay, Trustee Luciano, Citizens Advisory Committee.
Thank you. The Citizens Advisory Committee will meet September 24th. We're presently working on means to figure out how we're going to hold the meeting. We're looking at streaming and telephone call-in for those who'd like to attend the meeting remotely, as well as social distancing and wearing masks for those who physically attend. We will notify the members of these options when we send out the agenda and advise the board at the next board meeting. And that's all I have right now.
Okay, thank you. I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Diane, roll call, please.
Luciano,
Better say it again.
Luciano,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Kirkland,
Yes.
DeBold,
Yes.
Warren,
Yes.
and Brockman.
Yes.
Okay, we stand adjourned.